Good evening. Rail passengers are being warned they can expect to stand for longer on their journeys around the region. The BBC has learned that companies bidding to run local trains in the West Midlands are being given permission to remove seats to create more standing room in an effort to cope with the massive growth in rail travel. A document inviting companies to bid also contains a proposal for driver-only trains, a concept that's currently the subject of a major industrial dispute around London. Well, our transport correspondent, Peter Plisner, is outside a cross-city station this evening. Now, Peter, could these changes happen?
Well, they certainly could, Nick. The proposals are contained in this, the invitation to tender, which is sent out to potential bidders for the new West Midlands franchise. As you said, there's been massive growth over the last few years, but crucially, no new trains are currently on order. So something radical was needed to increase capacity, and taking out seats to increase standing room seems to be the answer.
So tightly are the people crammed into the Japanese trains at rush hour that special slippery suits have been made for commuters.
This is what the rush hour used to be like in Tokyo. Is this where we're heading in the West Midlands? Probably not, but more capacity is badly needed, particularly on Birmingham's cross-city line. Passengers in Sutton Coldfield are no strangers to squeezing into busy trains.
You can barely squeeze in some days.
Kind of rush hour times, yes, it's manic, it is crowded.
But the BBC has learned that the latest invitation to tender for the West Midlands rail franchise has given bidders the option of packing even more people into carriages. If you find yourself standing on a train, this is the amount of space you should be offered. It's about half a square metre. But bidders for the new West Midlands franchise are being given the option to reduce that size down to around a third of a square metre on some routes. But on the cross-city line, there's a further option down to a quarter of a square metre. With the prospect of even less space for standing, not surprisingly, passengers we spoke to weren't amused.
Well, it's mad, isn't it? Because it's not allowing for bags, rucksacks and stuff like that.
For me to fit into a quarter of a square metre, it's just, that wouldn't happen.
But West Midlands Rail, part of the new combined authority, maintains that the new rules make perfect sense.
You have to remember these are for short journeys. The vast majority of journeys on the cross-city line are less than 20 minutes. There will of course still be seats on the train, and there'll be plenty of seats, but this is just to allow much better standing capacity on the trains for these short journeys.
Controversially, the document also clears the way for bidders to implement driver-only train operation, where guards are no longer needed. It's already the subject of a major industrial dispute in London, which has been causing misery for passengers. This rail expert says bidders will need to tread carefully.
Let's hope that everybody involved in that dispute learns the lessons and ensures that if driver-controlled operation is introduced in the West Midlands, that it's done properly and without strife and without inconvenience to passengers.
But it's not all bad news. The invitation to tender also contains proposals for more Sunday and evening services, extra trains from Birmingham to Shrewsbury, direct services from Walsall to London, and free Wi-Fi on all trains. Meanwhile, back at Sutton Coldfield, station signs have turned gold in honour of Olympic medal winner Laura Unsworth. But whether passengers get a medal-winning service in the future remains to be seen. Now, two companies are in the running for the franchise. Go Ahead Group, which is the parent company of the current incumbent London Midland, they're obviously hoping to retain the franchise. The other company is Abellio, a Dutch-owned group in a joint venture with Japanese firms. The announcement on who wins will be made in April next year.
Peter, thank you. Perhaps not surprisingly, we've had a lot of comments on this already. Here's a selection. Jason White emailed us. It's not rocket science, he says. Invest in more rolling stock and have longer trains. 2 carriage trains are wholly inadequate in this day and age. Robert Kilpatrick says everyone travelling by train should be seated and have a seatbelt. What makes this form of transport exempt from this practice? Sandra Arnold posted on Facebook, perhaps there should be back-to-back bench seats rather than full seats. Martin Grimmett asks, will the fares be reduced for standees? How will seated passengers manage to get off at their station trying to push through hundreds of disgruntled fellow passengers? Guy Roberts messaged us, the Wi-Fi idea is great, but who's going to be able to use it when there isn't enough room to blow your nose, let alone get out a laptop or mobile phone? And finally, Terry Harvey posted on Facebook, more packed in, more profit. Next, they'll allow passengers on the roof. Thanks to all of you for getting in touch. A Worcestershire charity